More than a year into the pandemic, you continue to share with us how the Illinois unemployment system is still failing. We have painstakingly investigated case after case that you brought to us, each time asking IDES to sit down with us and answer your questions about what's broken and what it's going to take to fix it. Finally, some answers straight from the top in this exclusive interview with CBS 2's Tara Molina.
We got 30 virtual minutes with Acting Director Kristin Richards. Not enough time to address the hundreds of issues we've investigated since the bottom of the job market fell out a year ago, but enough time to get answers to some of the questions IDES hasn't answered on issues that are affecting so many of you. Crucial to the state's response to the pandemic, to the taxpayers of Illinois, we committed to uncovering and investigating your unemployment issues and the systemic failures causing them for more than a year now. But it hasn't been easy. We've had public records requests denied, blacked out, requested interviews constantly only to get written statements in return. Many that didn't even answer our questions, your questions. 12 months of that led to this, a Zoom call with Acting Director Kristin Richards. Why is this the first time we're hearing from you? Why just written statements every week?
Honestly, I think we've been very, very busy here. We have worked hard to respond to the questions that you do ask of us. But we're happy to sit down today.
This, our first chance to bring your issues directly to the top. I mean, people still call this a broken system.
So for me, Tara, just personally, when I hear that individuals are having a difficult time resolving their issues with the agency, it's heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking, but a year into the pandemic that caused millions in Illinois to lose their jobs. Many then forced to wait weeks and weeks on help just to try to secure benefits they're entitled to. What's being done to fix this? Richards told me the call center is the major priority for IDES right now.
We're viewing everything now through the lens of how do we increase that productivity.
Our latest public records request shows there were 100,920 phone numbers sitting in IDES's queues, people waiting for a returned call, a lifeline to their benefits. She says that number is down to just over 100,000 now.
It's not where we want to be. We just need to continue working to drive those numbers down.
By increasing call center hours and working through weekends and holidays. We know people are still waiting weeks on a call for help, but the number of people waiting is only part of the problem. We continue to investigate issues on the other end of the line. Contracted call takers who can't answer questions or give out bad information. Richards acknowledges it's an issue.
Quite frankly, it's unacceptable.
Telling me they're working on monitoring calls and continuing training for those workers. As for calls that come after weeks-long waits only to drop or disconnect, she says IDES is also digging into that and claims it's not a technology problem.
What we have also started to do is pull a report at the end of the day in our call center that gives us an indication of what calls have been dropped. And we have asked our call center agents to reach out to those people within 1 to 2 business days in order to complete the call.
And we learned through public records requests, IDES is keeping track of how many of those dropped calls are actually returned by a human. Another major issue hammering the agency, fraud. According to IDES, they've stopped about 1.5 million fraudulent unemployment claims. But how many have taxpayers in Illinois paid out, lost, to fraudsters? We've asked more than once. Why is it that to this day we haven't heard a total cost, a number on the fraud issue in Illinois?
We are working hard to quantify that number.
Still no answer. But for the first time, we did get an answer to another question. Why can't IDES open its offices?
We are going to open our office as soon as it's feasible for us to do so.
The timeline right now, Richards says later this summer, with plans to test out in-person service at locations before fully opening their doors.
But we want to ensure that we are not creating a chaotic, unsafe environment for claimants that are visiting our offices. So we are going to do it gradually.
A gradual plan to reopen and a continued plan to improve, we're hoping, transparently.
I think today, just having this conversation with you around our call center numbers and how our callback system is working and how there is really need for room for improvement is important.
Right now, IDES is trying to get a $60 million increase to next year's budget to tackle some of these issues, with $30 million marked for their call center and another big chunk marked to tackle fraud. For CBS 2, I'm Tara Molina.
Thank you, Tara. We take you now to Tara's full interview.
And Kristin, I know that we're sitting down today virtually to talk about an update with the call center. Do you want to start with that?
Sure, I would be happy to. So with regard to our call center operations, first I want to acknowledge that we are not entirely where we want to be. We are working to continue to staff and train and hire individuals to assist with our call center. The good news, however, is that a number of weeks ago, I believe that you had reported that we had roughly 150,000 outstanding tasks in our call center. As of this morning, that number is just north of 100,000. But again, that's not where we want to be. We just need to continue working to drive those numbers down. We know that individuals are reaching our call center because they need assistance with their claim. That's an indication that they are reaching out because there's urgency around why it is that they're reaching us, right? If an individual is unemployed at no fault of their own, it's an incredibly stressful circumstance and we have a responsibility to help them. So any process improvements we can continue to make there are top of mind for the agency. It is really, quite frankly, Tara, the number one most important thing for our team at this point in time.
So what I'm hearing from you is that last update, I think it was last week, you'd said 101,000 numbers in the call center queues. We're still around that number right now?
We are, Tara. Staffing our call center remains a dynamic process. Call intake will increase based on the complexity of these state or federal programs. For example, after the Continued Assistance Act was signed into law at the end of December, that introduced changes to the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, requiring individuals to provide evidence of employment or self-employment in order to qualify for those benefits. Those are the types of changes that drive volume to our call center and also require us to ensure that we have trained call center agents that are capable of handling the calls that are coming into the call center. So it is just this continued dynamic staffing process, but we have to continue making improvements there. As I said, it is one of our top goals for this agency.
Absolutely. Now, the call center hasn't been around since the start of the pandemic, but that is when we started covering issues with unemployment and issues with IDES getting to the overwhelming number of claims. Now, no State Department expected the spike that everyone saw across the country, but we've seen IDES struggle to keep up with the claims through the pandemic a year into it. So can you talk at all about the internal barriers that IDES is facing that's preventing the agency from addressing all these claims in a timely manner?
I want to just acknowledge that at the outset of this pandemic, this agency experienced a real tsunami of new claims. And then within weeks, stood up 5 new federal programs in order to provide assistance to individuals that were coming to us for help. We are in the process of actually standing up our 6th, the Mixed Earner Unemployment Compensation Program that was authorized under the Continued Assistance Act. So the work very sincerely continues. The pandemic, unfortunately, was not a static event. We did not see individuals immediately file for benefits and then return quickly to work. Instead, what we've seen are continued claims, people coming back to the agency week after week for help. Our commitment is to help them and give them the resources they need in order to navigate this incredibly difficult point in time in their lives. One other thing that we've had to do as an agency is quickly react through use of technology, through improvements to our communications, to outreach to stakeholders, in order to think more broadly about how it is that we can communicate around these programs, the type of assistance that is available to people, and what steps they need to take in order to apply for assistance. One of our challenges too at the outset of the pandemic was that the agency staff were dealing with old, ancient technology. I have stories of colleagues within the agency that it took them sometimes 30 minutes to boot a 10-year-old state computer in order to log in for work. That's 30 minutes that could have been spent assisting a claimant that needs a callback or is waiting on their adjudication appointment. And so ensuring that we are purchasing desktops, purchasing laptops for our staff has also been top of mind. Again, just giving them the resources they need in order to increase productivity. every added minute that we're spending doing the work for claimants that are coming into us for help, it's delivering the benefits that people are waiting on. It's delivering the benefits that people need. So we're viewing everything now through the lens of how do we increase that productivity. An example of this is just increasing our call center hours. I think you might know, Tara, that we expanded our call center hours into the evenings and weekends. We've also been working state holidays. So again, how are we meeting the needs of these people? It's what's fueling us. It's like driving our daily conversation internal at the agency.
And it's great to hear what you guys are doing, but for people who are still waiting, and that's kind of been the theme of the last year, these long waits for help. Once they can get the help over the phone, it's not necessarily there. I mean, we've heard frustrations from claimants and employees with your agency that the temporary call takers are part of the problem. So can you talk to me? I heard a little bit about the solutions you're exploring, but what is it at this point? Why the delays? Why does this continue? I mean, people still call this a broken system.
Tara, just personally, when I hear that individuals are having a difficult time resolving their issues with the agency, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for my colleagues. I know that these are problems that are deeply felt within the agency, and we have a commitment to resolving them. My ask of my colleagues is that we work on viewing these things through we are driven by empathy. And really, as we're looking for solutions to these problems, how are we putting ourselves in the shoes of an individual that is just trying to get through to us for help? Our challenge in the call center remains onboarding individuals and then training them and giving them the skill set they need in order to assist. We're going to acknowledge that when claimants who are calling us and are waiting for a call back and are finally connected with an agent, when they have a negative experience or their question is not brought to a resolution, that is disappointing for me. It's disappointing for my peers at the agency, and quite frankly, it's unacceptable. We have started bringing some quality assurance controls around our call center process. We silently monitor calls. We work aggressively with our supervisors and ask that they mentor our call center agents in order to build those skill sets and build those customer service experiences out for individuals that need help. But it is just an ongoing process of looking for those improvements and really trying to meet people that are coming to us for assistance.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I actually had a conversation with our producer, Carol Thompson, about silent monitoring yesterday, but I do want to focus in on something you said before that, the onboarding and training of these call takers. It's something that we've tried to get information on in the past, just because we continue to hear these issues on both sides. Can you talk to me a little bit about those issues and what's being done to make this better? Because we've seen that those people cannot offer the help that claimants need right now.
So our number one challenge is ensuring that when individuals are onboarded, they are given a skill set that aligns with the type of calls that they're going to be assisting callers with. So for example, a training ground for us is introducing our new call center agents to assisting people who need help resetting their passwords. Claimants can reset their password online. We have instructions on the agency's website and in our applications for how they can do so. But we know that sometimes people just need to talk to a human being. And so we use our password reset option as a way to train our new agents on how to familiarize themselves with our system in order to begin assisting claimants. Our training activities are scalable. And so when an individual will come to us, when they will join the project, they start out with a basic skill set, and then over time build out their skill set and learn more about these state and federal programs. I want to acknowledge that state and federal unemployment compensation programs are hugely complicated. And we have people that are coming to this agency for the very first time. People that, again, are unemployed at no fault of their own as a result of this pandemic, who are coming to us and saying, I don't necessarily understand what it is that I've received in the mail. I need to speak with someone who can help me understand this letter, help me understand my benefits. And so it's just making sure that those agents are trained and doing it in a way that's scalable is our priority.
And if they prove to not be successful, you did again mention those new measures in place. Is anything being done to retrain them? Again, we understand these are temporary employees, but also from conversations in the past and information in the past, their training doesn't seem to be as substantial as an IDES worker's training. The jobs posted are for 6 months, and we understand it takes longer than that to train an IDES worker, right?
So, Tara, I think I do want to address, I think you are referring to these 6-month job postings. Those are not call center agents. Okay. Those are not call center agents. Those are individuals that we are looking to onboard to work with our stakeholder organizations. One thing that has been a priority of mine since joining the agency in August is how do we reach out to stakeholder organizations that are also working with claimants? So, for example, we know that local chambers of commerce, associations, legal aid clinics work frequently with unemployment insurance claimants in order to answer questions about programs, share resources. And quite frankly, Tara, we have not had enough people within this agency in order to respond to all of the needs that are out there from stakeholders that are looking to interact with us. So onboarding those individuals temporarily is certainly going to help. With regard to the call center, we have hired and trained over 1,000 Illinoisans throughout the course of the last year in order to assist with our callback process. The training activities just remain ongoing. And it is honestly conversations with supervisors, with management to make sure that those individuals receive ongoing professional development. That may involve and often involves them returning to classes in order to refine their skill set and continue to learn.
A year into the pandemic, there are still people losing their jobs, still people in, pretty dire situations. We hear from them all the time. What do you say to these people who reach out to us and say, I've been waiting, a month on a callback from IDES. I now have to live out of my car. I mean, these are people who say the agency is failing them, that it's broken.
I have to just tell you that my heart is broken for them. We have to work harder, faster, and be more efficient in order to meet their needs. It is, again, on the minds of everyone at this agency. How do we reach the people that need help? We know, again, that folks have come to us for the first time. Unemployment is one of the most stressful circumstances that anyone can go throughout the course of their lifetime. And people are experiencing unemployment for the very first time as a result of this pandemic. So how do we reach them? How do we meet their needs? How do we uncomplicate the nature of these programs in order to assist them is our challenge.
And just before I kind of move on to another topic with you, something else we hear is they finally get that call back they've waited for forever. And this is something we've brought to Rebecca a number of times. She won't be surprised to hear me bring this up, but then they get that call and either it's disconnected, it's dropped, it's a hang-up call. What's being done to address that? Is that an infrastructure issue?
So, Tara, we have studied our infrastructure and we have no indication that this is an infrastructure problem. This is a technology problem. But what we have also started to do is pull a report at the end of the day in our call center that gives us an indication of what calls have been dropped. And we have asked our call center agents to reach out to those people within 1 to 2 business days in order to complete the call.
Okay. Can we move on and talk a little bit about fraud? That's something that we're hearing about every day now. Why is it that to this day we haven't heard a total cost, a number on the fraud issue in Illinois? Is there a number?
Tara, we are working hard to quantify that number. What we want to make sure that we're able to do is really disaggregate that number by federal program. We know that these federal programs are what drove fraudsters to states' unemployment agencies nationwide. This is an endemic crisis that is impacting states across the country, resulting from a real devastating impact of having stolen and compromised personally identifying information located on the dark web as a result of these wide-scale data breaches, cyber attacks that have hit companies like Equifax and Target. Again, the United States Department of Labor sent an email to all states in the middle of December, and they characterized it as states truly being under attack. And so as we're working to continue to find new strategies, work with other states, work with law enforcement in order to put protections in place into our systems, we are working to quantify the exposure around what it is that has gone out related to fraudulent payments.
When could we see that number? Because we've heard a couple times now that it's about 1.5 million fraudulent claims in the system. I don't know if that's still the case, but it's difficult to understand how we know that, but we don't know the total amount.
So we reported out on March 5th, I believe, that we had stopped 1.5 million claims associated with fraud. What I want to make clear, Tara, is that 1.5 million number would also include any claims that have been stopped before they ever hit our system. So the lion's share of claims are stopped before any payments are made. We do that through use of data analytics, data science, that gives us the ability to cross-match those claims against various databases and use identity verification tools in order to stop any payment, any activity on those claims. What I also want to ask is that if any of your viewers have an indication of fraudulent activity in the unemployment insurance system, if for some reason they receive a letter in the mail from the Department of Employment Security and they have not filed for benefits, please visit the agency's website and report what it is that they've received. We refer all of that information to law enforcement, as we need law enforcement's help in order to find the individuals that are behind the crime.
And I have a note here to ask you about that, because we'd heard that in a hearing with you that the lion's share stopped at the front door. That means those claimants, they didn't even get that first week payment. They weren't paid at all?
That's correct.
Okay. And just, I'm sorry to harp on this, but any general idea of when we'd have a total number here, a cost of fraud?
I can promise you that we are working on that.
Okay. For those who say that Illinois was hit harder by these fraudulent claims and it's had more of an effect on our agency, what do you say to them? We see other states taking different measures and handling this in other ways. Why is Illinois struggling to do that?
We have no evidence that Illinois is struggling harder relative to other states. There is a national dialogue around this. States meet regularly in order to discuss what strategies we're all individually pursuing in order to stop the activity. We have very deliberately been tight-lipped about what strategies we use here in Illinois. Tara, we know that the fraudsters are watching. We know that the fraudsters are watching and paying attention, and they're working to grow increasingly sophisticated in order to find ways to evade the various checks that states' unemployment systems have in place in order to stop the crime. So again, we're very, very careful so as to not reveal our strategies, but we do not have any evidence that suggests that in Illinois we have a problem that is larger than other states.
Has that happened in the past? Is there a case that you can think of where a fraudster was able to take advantage of information made public here? Or is that just a concern?
It's certainly a concern. It's certainly a concern. We know that they're paying attention.
Okay, last kind of topic when it comes to fraud, because we continue to see this even more so right now. The fraudulent claims filed in the names of dead Illinois residents. It's confusing because there's a record with the state that these people aren't living. So how is that happening, and what's in place at the state to prevent that at the state level, and is it not working?
So what's complicated for folks to understand is that when a claim has been filed, that is an indication that that fraudster, that criminal, is using stolen personally identifying information in order to file that claim. But when that claim is filed, we are able to use our tools in order to stop that claim. So for example, if a claim is filed in the name of a deceased individual, our system analytics are able to intervene and stop that claim. Now, I want to just acknowledge though, Tara, if I were a family member of an individual who is deceased and I receive an indication that a claim has been filed in their name, that's devastating. That would conjure up a lot of emotions, feelings around why this individual is being taken advantage of. And so I just want to acknowledge that for any individuals who have received something like that from the department, we are working very, very hard in order to ensure that that type of activity does not happen.
Is there anything new in place at the state level to prevent that? It's just confusing. How does that even happen?
This happens because, again, a criminal is using PII, stolen personally identifying information of that deceased individual, to file in that individual's name. Because someone receives a letter, a UI finding letter in the mail from the Department of Employment Security, that is not an indication that any payments are being made in that individual's name. It is an indication that that information, that personally identifying information, is available for criminals to use on the dark web. Again, that's been obtained through a previous cyber attack, a large wide-scale data breach outside of the state of Illinois systems, but that information is being used. We just want to urge anyone that has questions around how identity theft is being manipulated to access unemployment insurance benefits to please visit our department's website, visit our identity theft reporting page, and just read a little bit about what it is that's going on here.
Want to talk to you about this too. We've been asking for months now, why aren't offices open? We see other state offices opening their doors in the past few months and even earlier than that. Why can't IDES open its offices?
We are going to open our office as soon as it's feasible for us to do so. And I'm going to tell you that this is going to likely look like a gradual reopening. What we want to do is ensure that and I've said this before, but we want to ensure that we are not creating a chaotic, unsafe environment for claimants that are visiting our offices. So we are going to do it gradually, and we are likely going to do it in a way that is piloted, so we test and see what works. But we are working in that direction. I feel that, Tara, as vaccination rates begin to increase, we can hopefully look at restoring in-person services later this summer.
Okay, and up into the summer, we know there's been discussion now about the possibility of virtual appointments. I know you had a meeting possibly even yesterday on this and employing some new technology to make it happen. What's being done on that front?
So we are looking at technology solutions that would again enable far more in-person, virtual even interaction with individuals that need to spend some extra time with an individual that is working on behalf of the department. What individuals are able to do now in our call center is that if they receive a callback from a call center agent at a time that is inconvenient for them, they can reschedule a callback. We also regularly schedule interviews surrounding an individual's adjudication or appeal, but we know that there are individuals that might be looking for additional support. And so there are some technology solutions that would enable appointment scheduling. But again, our goal is to really work toward restoring those in-person services later on this summer.
Could we see virtual appointments happen soon? I mean, is that something that's going to happen at the same time as doors opening, or could we see that happen sooner? I know they brought this up in a hearing. Courts have done it. Why can't IDES do it?
We're a little bit different than courts. We've seen other states where they have, for example, had offices open and they've just been flooded with intake. But we are looking at a way to do this in a way that is organized for claimants. One thing that we want to ensure that we're doing is not creating a scheduling circumstance that is also losing our productivity, right? We want to make sure that we are maintaining productivity so as to continue to work through all the cases that are coming in our direction. But we are open-minded to solutions. We are working toward a goal of restoring those services.
Okay. I want to talk to you too a little bit about transparency, because we've run into issues from the start of the pandemic with once Director Tom Chan, and now we're finally sitting down with you, but we've had FOIAs denied, FOIAs entirely redacted. I mean, a year into the pandemic, it's our first time hearing from you. I know you have a history of transparency in government, of being a problem solver. What do you say to that, and how it looks to the public who rely on this agency?
Well, I'm really happy to sit down with you today, Tara. We'll start there. I would say that our agency, we're a federally funded agency, so our performance is measured. Those are measurable performance indicators that are posted on federal websites. We have worked really hard. I have worked personally very hard in order to update materials that are located on our website, try to increase transparency around the type of work we do and what it is that we're doing. Again, how do we communicate out these programs, I think is a huge challenge for this agency that has in the past tended towards communicating in a really bureaucratic fashion, right? And so it's how do we expand out our communications in order to meet the people that are coming to us for help, in order to make these things make sense, I think is part of my transparency effort here as the acting director.
I totally appreciate that, but when it comes to us specifically, we're hearing from people all the time who want answers, and we're bringing those to you as almost like a intermediary. Why is this the first time we're hearing from you? Why just written statements every week? Why?
Well, Tara, honestly, I think we've been very, very busy here. We have worked hard to respond to the questions that you do ask of us. But, we're happy to sit down today. Really grateful for the opportunity.
Okay, and I just do want to touch on the FOIAs because we file those to try to get the latest information that we can't get in a statement. And recently, those have been either redacted or entirely denied, or even pages missing from those weekly call center reports that we used to get. So, is anything being done there to increase the transparencies and the availability of information to the public?
Well, I think today, just having this conversation with you around our call center numbers and how our callback system is working and how there is really need for room for improvement is important. I think that dialogue, getting that out there is important. Also, just sharing with people how complicated that process is as we're working to continue to onboard and train individuals and make sure that the needs of every individual caller is being met. Again, this is like this ongoing scaling process that we're really committed to seeing through.
Okay. 8 months into the job, if there are any specific challenges that you've run into that we and the public don't know about, because we want to give you an opportunity to talk about that a year into this.
Thank you, Tara. I think one thing that I want to start talking about that I really want to share with your viewers are some of the positive things that we've seen out of this agency. We have administered over $20 billion in benefits for people that are applying for unemployment compensation. We have instituted new programs like the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, which is a new federal program that is reaching individuals that were ineligible for regular unemployment insurance. And we are finally committed as an agency to seeing through our responsibility under workforce laws. We have a responsibility to administer workforce support for individuals that are dislocated from the workplace at no fault of their own. It is an important part of what we do here, and I think important part of our restoration efforts as we're moving out of this pandemic.
I appreciate it. I think we've just about covered it. I mean, before you go, if you can just speak directly to the people who call us and say that the system is broken, it's failing me, and I have nowhere else to turn. What do you say to those people a year into this who are dealing with the same problems they did last March?
I want to tell you that I care deeply for you, that the agency employees care deeply for you. It is fueling our fire every single day. When we wake up in the morning, it is taking a look at how our performance is from the day prior when we shut down that night. So every single day, it is this performance analysis. How are we meeting your needs? How can we make things better? There's certainly room for improvement, but we're committed to seeing it through.
So thank you. We appreciate it, and I look forward to hopefully talking to you in the future.
It's really nice to meet you.
Tara has been covering IDES issues for over a year now. To see more of her reporting, go to the Working for Chicago section of the CBS 2 app.